Hello, everybody. Blake Reiter here with another Lighthouse Quick Take. Today, we are going to be talking about short-term rentals and how they impact certain markets differently than others, because we all know that short-term rentals are a thing and they're here to stay. But one question we hear a lot from a lot of different marketing organizations is, how are short-term rentals impacting my market relative to other markets? So we here at Lighthouse put out a new piece of analytics, the short-term rental impact index, where we are going to quantify essentially for all the markets how they impact one market relative to another. So I'm going to share my screen. So this is kind of our V1 of this impact index, because we're going to be continuing to develop and enhance this impact index and add more considerations to the impact index, but call this our V1. Right now, our V1, the current factors driving the impact index are: number one, price growth for hotels versus price growth for short-term rentals in that specific market. We'll also be factoring in short-term rentals that are appearing in those top 20 ranking positions on booking.com. So when you do an organic search for a certain market, we all see short-term rentals appearing in those top 20 ranked positions on booking.com. How prevalent are short-term rentals versus hotels in those top 20 ranking positions? And then short-term rentals versus hotel supply in a given market. How many hotels are there versus short-term rental units? So those are the three considerations currently being factored in to this index. But going forward, we're going to be thinking about other things like listing multiple. So the average number of booking engines that each short-term rental listing is listed on in that given market. The distribution of hotels across different star levels, understanding that certain star levels are going to be affected more or less by short-term rentals. The ratio of studio and one-bedroom units, specifically relative to hotel supply, because those studio and one-bedroom units are probably going to be more directly competitive to a hotel rather than a big house. And lastly, just kind of general geographic considerations. So how dense are those short-term rentals relative to hotels physically? But for now, let's now dive into the short-term rental impact index. So we quantified and ranked the impact of short-term rentals on every destination we track globally, okay? And the index effectively normalizes all these ratings and shows how much each location is affected by short-term rentals. And based on our analytics, we have determined that in this V1 version of our short-term rental impact index, the least impacted Lighthouse destination is Maceo in Brazil, on the eastern coast of Brazil. That is the least impacted Lighthouse track destination. And the most impacted Lighthouse destination is Dubrovnik in Croatia, okay? So we are now going to throw up a bunch of European cities. That's what we're diving into today. European cities, to understand where these fall on the scale. And with that, this is how the European cities, these key markets, fall on this impact index. If you follow each individual color, you can clearly see that each color will correspond with where it goes on the scale. And here's the big takeaway from all this. The impact is kind of all over the place. And if you look, one of the big things I want to point out is that if you look on the scale, you will see that two cities that are right next to each other are Prague and London. Those are the two markets that have been identified as almost identical. If you see on the left side, London being light blue and Prague being that lime green, they're almost identical. Yet these are very different cities, very different. Yet from a short-term rental impact standpoint, they are nearly identical. So what it really goes to show is how critical data is, because two cities that might appear fairly different on the surface, or fairly similar on the surface for that matter, might have very different impacts in terms of how short-term rentals are impacting the hotel market as a whole. So the key takeaway here is make sure you have the data and analytics and understanding of how it impacts your market, so you can make sure that your own market and your commercial strategy for your market is addressed appropriately. We are going to be developing and continuing to hone in this impact index as the year progresses. And when we have a V2, we will be doing more content on this, and we'll walk through how the V2 is ranking all the different markets, and then we can compare and contrast. It's going to be very interesting and really engaging content, so look out for that later this year. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Blake Reiter, and this has been Lighthouse Quick Takes.